Hello again, hope everyone is doing well. Today's video is the second yearly update of my top 10 AFL cards of all time video. In this video, similar to last year, I'll be both going through the performance of these cards, my top 10 cards from my first video in 2021, tracking their performance yearly and also across that full period, and also giving my new top 10 list for this year that I can track going forward. So to start off, you can see my list, my original list from 2021, April 2021, which seems like a long time ago now, and then my follow-up list last year in 2022. Like I always do, only rookie cards and only cards after 2000. Those are my two parameters. So there wasn't a huge amount of change from 2021 to 2022. Notably, Cripps actually dropped off my list going into 2022, which is pretty funny. He ended up picking up the Brownlow last year, so it didn't work out too well. But without any further ado, I think I'm going to get into the financial analysis part of the video, which is my favorite part. And let's see how these cards have performed, because 2023 has been, well, 2022 into 2023 has been a bit more of a tough financial environment. 2021 was very easy. Pretty much everything was going up. So it was no surprise that these footy cards saw some appreciation. But let's see how they did in a tougher economic climate. Okay, so let's start with Pendles. His original ranking was nil because he wasn't in my 2021 list, but he got in 2022. In April 2021, I looked and his price was about 300 for his DPS, went to 370 the next year. This is the year I included him, and then went up roughly another $60 to the price it is currently. Now it's going ranging from about 350 to 500, so I've put it in the middle here at 430, which I think is a pretty reasonable valuation at the moment. That gives a yearly change of 16% year on year. Total change of 130 over the last 2 years, total change of 43. So this card's performed very well. No surprises. Pendles just continues to help his legacy every time he goes in the field. He's still playing at an extremely high level, and it doesn't hurt that Collingwood as a team is doing really well as well. And if he was to win another premiership, he'd go to the next level. Next, we've got Joel Selwood. His DPS, my original ranking for this was 10. In 2021, I had 3 players in 10th place. But the first of those was Selwood, start off at $80. That seems extremely cheap now, but I bid on one that ended up finishing at $75 in early 2021, and I didn't end up wanting to pay over that, which was a big mistake looking back, but it just shows how far footy cards have come. Even in the past year, it's gone up $50. That's a yearly change of 28%. Not a huge surprise given Geelong's premiership success. But then that total change is massive, up 187.5%. And that's in 2 years. So $150 change in 2 years. It would have been great to pick up 5 or so of those in 2021. Next, we got the Pavlich. Not really a similar trajectory, actually, a lot more steady and slow paced. Last year only saw $10 difference, 8% change. Total change is still $40, which is nearly 45% all up. This is the kind of card I love. I love these cards which slowly creep up. And this is why I think I have 3 of these now, just because I think personally they're going to go up that 5 to 10% every year. They're not going to boom because Pavlich has already finished his career. So it's not like he's going to get any hype behind him now, but just his legacy will carry on, I think, and keep pushing this higher and higher. So although this isn't as violent as someone like Selwood, it's a very steady rise. Next, we've got the Hodge, another guy who's having a steady rise. Not many of these sell. You don't see a huge amount of these hit the market. I've put the yearly change at $50. I don't think one even sold in the last year, but there's been a few silvers that sold, which should be a lot cheaper, but I think one of the silvers sold for over 200. So this might be a bit light on, but then again, there isn't as much of a difference between the silver out of 650 copies and the gold out of 225 as there should be, in my opinion. But a common thread between all these cards, they've all gone up in the past year. And that's when everything else, nearly everything else in the world has gone down, whether it be the stock market, whether it be crypto or something like that, even American sports cards. So this is a very promising sign. I'm not saying that footy cards are the best investment ever because of this, but it is a good sign that they didn't just have a huge 2021 and then just fall off the map in 2022, 23. They're definitely holding their own, and there will be some backwards years, but it's good to see that they haven't happened yet for most of these cards. Next, the Nick Rewalt. I'll quicken this up a bit because it is a bit of a long list with the 13 cards in it now. Got the Rewalt DPS. This kind of caught fire in the last year, up $60, which is 50%. Total change is doubled in the last 2 years, and I've seen some sell for more than this, $180 actually, but $90 from 2 years ago seems like a great price. The Judd Gold from 210. I bought my copy at 200. I've only got the one copy, and now it's probably a $350 card. They like the Hodge from the same year. They are getting harder and harder to find. I would love to pick up another copy of this card. Total change over the 2 years at 67%. Next, we've got the Dusty DPS. This was huge in 2021. This kind of Dusty in general, and this card specifically really pushed the boom and the rookie boom in 2021 and early 2022. With Dusty getting injured and not finding his top form, it has fallen a bit in the last year, $70 down, which I think is a reasonable thing just because it got so expensive, especially for a card that's out of 400 copies. It's not like it's out of 50 or 100, so it can keep that really high price point very easily. There are quite a few copies floating around, so it's quite impressive that it has actually kept still a high price point. The total change is still over 50%, which is impressive. But let's go. I think I said last year, the kind of cards that boom in 1 year, I won't really want to pick those up in the next year generally, unless they're hugely undervalued, because they've already done lots of their appreciation. I like getting cards that haven't quite kind of kicked up a notch rather than on cards that I've kind of missed the boat on. So that's the first drop of the year. And then we've got the Dusty Platinum draft pick, another drop. It's a similar story, really. Had a huge increase, tripled in price from 2021 to 2022, and then has just fallen away a bit, 11% over the past year, but still a huge overall change in a positive way. Next, the Danger Platinum DPS. This was helped by the Premiership win like Selwood. Went from 250. I got 3 copies of this, and I held on to it from 250, and I think my average cost is about 250 to 270. And I held on. It didn't see any price appreciation for years and years, and then finally it kicked up to 300 plus last year. There's not many of these in the market now. I think the last one sold for about $400. So market would be about 370. I've calculated. That's a yearly change of 37%. Next is the Franklin Platinum draft pick. This is another one that saw a big jump in 2021 and 2022, but this one kept going a bit in 2023. This might be a bit ambitious, but it's only 130 copies. So it's the kind of card, if you don't buy when it's available, then you're probably not going to see it for a while afterwards. So I could definitely see someone, and I know people have paid more than this $600 price tag, but one might not immediately go for this if it was put on the market. The biggest total change so far, 275% for that card. And this is the original ranking, by the way. This is from 2021. So the Bond Future Force Gold. This is one that hasn't really moved in a huge way. Still up 30%. But when you take into account selling fees, and if you were to have bought it for 620, that's what one sold for actually in 2021. I remember following that sale, and then selling for 800 2 years later. When you take into account inflation, selling fees, that's not really a big real increase, but it is something. And this is one that I think does have room to move in the future rather than that it's already at its absolute peak. The Crips DPS, this one was the only dropper in 21 to 2022, and then it has jumped back up a bit. And 450 is probably going to go, probably is going to go, or probably already is a tad higher than this. But yeah, a 12.5% yearly change, and a total change is still negative, which is the only card that's negative at the moment. And finally, we've got the 5 Platinum Draft pick from the same release as the Dusty Platinum Draft pick. This one didn't move at all, and that's mostly because there weren't many that have come up for sale. I've said that for a lot of these cards, but it's just the truth. There's not a huge influx of these cards on the market. The ones that have gone up for sale have sold for about this $250 price point. So that's probably market. There's one up at the moment for like 500, but no one's buying that. So it's the price is probably somewhere between $200 to $350, but it's hard to tell when there's not a lot of market transactions. So I've given it a nil yearly change, a total change of 25%. So still, it's an amazing year for these footy cards. Amazing year for classic rookie footy cards with an increase of 10%, whereas most things in the world were down that 20-30% between this time period. So I think that's a really impressive return. Overall, we've got 60% in 2 years. So roughly 30% each year. There's going to be a bit difference if you're looking at it compounding rather than simple interest, but about 30% a year, that's pretty insane returns, even if you take into account selling fees and the like of that. So that's the financial breakdown. Let me know what you think. Let me know any cards that you've been following over the last 2 years, and how you see what type of cards you think have moved the most over this time period. I only follow the rookies, so this is the information I have, but I'm sure that some other realms of cards have gone up as well that I haven't really noticed. And finally, let's look at my new list for 2023. As you guys would probably imagine, there hasn't been a huge amount of change, so it's not a super exciting reveal. But I have fixed up the list a bit, I think. In 2021, especially, I was going more for cards that I thought had investment potential, number one, and also my favorite cards, which I thought were the coolest. I fixed a bit last year, putting Dusty into number 2. But yeah, this year I've gone more into what are the most significant rookie cards, modern rookie cards in the game. And I think this is a more fair representation to someone who's new in the hobby, and they were like, give me the 5 most significant rookie cards since 2000. And I'd probably give a list similar to this. You've got the Dusty DPS, only one player. Each player is only allowed once on this list, by the way. Dusty DPS, Franklin Platinum Draft pick, Judd Gold, 5 Platinum Draft pick, the Bont Gold out of 40. It looks a tad out of place with all these other kind of a bit older legends, but I think that card being out of 40 is going to give it a huge leg up, and Bont is having an amazing season so far. He's going to get his 5th All-Australian at a pretty young age still, and he has a long way to go. So I'm pretty hot on Bont. We've got the Dangerfield Platt, Nick Rewalt DPS, Pendles DPS, Pavlich, and I've got Selwood and Hodge equal for 10. Special mentions go to Ablett Jr., Gary Ablett with the 2003 Scanlons. I only didn't include this because it's a more oddball release, and it probably doesn't have that real mass appeal that lots of these other cards have, being from major sets of these years. And the other special mention is Petrarca Green Future Force. This is similar to the Bond, where it's out of 40, going to be hugely rare in years to come, and Petrarca is really stamping his name as a premier player of the last 10 years. So that's my video for today. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.